Content warning. This episode contains discussion of domestic abuse and murder.
Today, we want to talk to you about three women. Lori Ceci Bovee, Corrie Anderson, and Yolanda Bendix. These women were going about their life in Chautauqua County, New York State's westernmost county, which borders Lake Erie and Pennsylvania.
They were doing the kind of things most of us, or at least someone we love, has done at some point. Getting dinner with family at Red Lobster. Going to meet a child's teacher to plan a Halloween party. Clocking out of Family Dollar. Then, something terrible happened to each one of these women. Two vanished. One was found murdered. None have received justice to date.
In this episode, we're talking with Merry Williams-Diers. She's an advocate for the missing and murdered of Western New York, and the founder of the Facebook page, WNY Missing and Unidentified Persons Network. And she also hosts the podcast, Meddling in Mysteries, Murder, and Missing on Mondays with Mary. She's doing absolutely commendable work to help to raise awareness of some of these cases. Mary is going to share the stories of these three women, as well as her thoughts on the possibility of a serial killer operating in this part of New York, conspiracy theories involving police, and a culture of silence that can keep crimes unsolved.
My name is Anya Kane. I'm a journalist.
And I'm Kevin Greenlee. I'm an attorney.
We first connected while looking into the Burger Chef murders, an Indiana cold case. Together, we built a spreadsheet documenting hundreds of cases of restaurant-related homicides. That original spreadsheet gave way to our podcast, The Murder Sheet.
Now we maintain that same research-centric, investigative approach as we look into all sorts of homicides, including unsolved cases, historical crimes, and, of course, restaurant murders.
We don't just chat about the headlines. Our podcast is a platform for our journalism. The Murder Sheet focuses on investigative reporting, thoughtful analysis, thorough research, and in-depth interviews. We're The Murder Sheet.
And this is Chautauqua County's Missing and Murdered Women, the cases of Lori Ceci Bovee, Corrie Anderson, and Yolanda Bendix.
So Lori Ceci Bovee went missing on the night of June 7th, 1997. She was residing in Lakewood, New York. Earlier that evening, she had went out to dinner with her husband, her sister, brother-in-law to Red Lobster, which is also right there in Lakewood. I think they departed around 11 o'clock, all went home. According to her husband, Tyrone, at the time, they had an argument upon returning home. And he stated that Lori went for a walk, possibly a smoke break, stepped outside, and she did not return by the following morning of June 8th, 1997, when family was asking where she was. So they all went and filed her missing. Rumor has it that his vehicle was seen at the Quickfill in Sugar Grove, PA, sometime throughout the night, where his original testimony basically reflected that he had went to bed and when he woke up, she still wasn't back, type of deal. So why he was really in Sugar Grove, if that is true, we have no idea. I know family stated that when they had went to dinner to Red Lobster, his vehicle appeared very clean, and by the following morning, it was covered in grass and mud.
Was he ever considered as a person of interest?
He was. He was, I believe, named as a person of interest. However, They don't really highlight that part of it anymore. Unfortunately, him and his new wife after Lori and their young son died in a motor vehicle accident in 2018. And really, a lot of people believe that he's the only one that really knew anything. And if he did ever confide in anybody, that it would possibly be his father. But people say that Tyrone was a very smart man. If he were to have committed a crime as such, that he was smart enough not to go around kind of telling everybody. So
that's a very tragic case all around. And I'm curious, is there anything in particular that law enforcement or the family is looking for from the public to possibly help fill in the blanks of what happened to her?
Yes, they're very much looking for new information. Like we spoke about last time, a lot of these cold cases have been transferred over to the new Chautauqua County Cold Case Unit. Hers is one of them. Last I knew, she wasn't getting as many tips as some of the cold cases were, but that's just lack of information all the way around. That's the problem with cold cases a lot of the times is as time goes on, people pass away or their health isn't good enough to be re-questioned or re-interviewed. So after time, you lose a lot of that critical, time for those tips to be generated. And Lori's family, after years and years and years, had to kind of let law enforcement and leave it in God's hands because it got very exhausting for them. I know they did several search efforts. I believe they even had EcuSearch down from Texas up here to assist in that search. So it wasn't one that wasn't taken seriously. However, it was in the hands, at least, of Lakewood Police Department, which is a very small department. If we think that we don't have very great resources here in Jamestown, New York, they're even less than us. So, unfortunately, it was basically like regular deputies, I believe, that handled her case from the very beginning rather than an assigned actual detective/investigator. And I just received a tip, and I haven't checked into the validity of it, but according to somebody that passed forward this tip, she said her husband used to work with somebody at the Cummins plant there in Lakewood that stated that he lived in the same apartment building as Lori at the time, and he was never questioned. So I am actually working to track him down to see if there's a reason why he said that he had never been questioned. Maybe he noticed something that night. And again, those are very basic things that you think wouldn't have been missed, but investigating and technology were not what they are here in 2023 that they, in 1997. So.
Absolutely. And then just one follow-up question on the Bove's relationship. Was there a history of any domestic violence? Was there a history of arguments, or was on the surface everything okay?
On the surface, everything was okay. I'm not sure if her family knew. I haven't really spoke to them in depth yet. I know that was one of the last families actually in our Chautauqua County that I connected with because I know that it got very hard on the family, especially after losing her mom, I believe, in 2010 without having answers as far as what happened to Lori. So I'm still, actually, we just discussed a little bit yesterday and the day before because I told them that I was talking about their sister's case today with you guys, and I wanted to get, some more of the basics other than just her height, weight, the things that people say every time that her case is highlighted, and try to see if we can kind of advance this anything from what it was in 1997, hopefully.
At that dinner at Red Lobster, did any family members notice any tension or anything unusual?
Not to my knowledge, nope. Just two sisters out with their husbands at a dinner, and everything seemingly went fine from everything that, all accounts of everybody that was there that night. I know her sisters, and if they felt like she was in danger, that they were arguing or something, somebody would have offered her to have stayed with them or, get out of the house. If they knew she was in any kind of danger, they wouldn't have let her go home that night.
Do you have anything more to say about that particular case?
Nope, I think that's about it for Lori Ceci Bovee, at least for now. Like I said, I might come across more information here upon discussing further. But with it coming up on her anniversary, her sister stated that it's a very hard time for their family. They do want to get Dad involved and discuss things further with me. However, being the hardest time of year right now on him, along with his age, we don't want to disrupt him. So hopefully I do get more soon, but that's it for now regarding Lori.
The murder sheet ensures that we stay busy, running around and reporting on true crime stories.
That means that HelloFresh has become a key part of keeping our week less hectic. This is America's #1 meal kit for a reason. We've enjoyed the journey of becoming at-home chefs and preparing delicious meals without blowing our budget or wasting a ton of time. One recent dish we really enjoyed was the spicy Peruvian chicken and loaded rice with pickled jalapeno and creamy salsa verde.
The chicken was nice and tasty with plenty of spicy flavors. HelloFresh really knows how to pick out ingredients, so you're getting that farm-to-table feel.
One thing that was almost as good as the food was the peace of mind knowing that I didn't botch a grocery trip and forget a key ingredient. We could just be in the moment and have fun cooking together.
Whatever your goals are this summer, consider HelloFresh. If you're looking to connect with friends and family with some backyard cookouts, then keep in mind their crowd-pleasing options like snack boards with pretzel bites, spiced bar nuts, and hot honey peach jam. And if you're trying to mind your health and eat well, you can opt for the Calorie Smart or Protein Smart options. Go to HelloFresh.com/MSheet16 and use code MSheet16 for 16 free meals plus free shipping. Again, go to HelloFresh.com/MSheet16 and use code MSheet16 for 16 free meals plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
What can you tell us about the Corrie Anderson case?
This is one of the most complex cases. Yeah, I could do a whole episode probably on Corrie Anderson herself, but here in Jamestown, New York, whenever you hear Lori, the next one that comes out of your mouth is usually Corrie, if not Yolanda. So they're always mentioned in threes. They are the most talked about unsolved cases here in Chautauqua County. A lot of people from outside of the area that don't know the background of these ladies often think that we could have a serial killer locally. But unfortunately, it's just violent crime against women that goes unsolved here. I do not believe that any of these three ladies, my own personal opinion, are a result of a serial killer, however, abusive relationships.
Before we get into talking about the specifics of the case, why do you think people are so quick to jump to serial killers whenever you have a cluster of missing women? Because I've noticed that phenomenon in other cases as well, and it strikes me a bit as like maybe buying too much of the Hollywood narrative around crime that, you know, everything's a serial killer.
Yep. And then you also get, you know, the people new to sleuthing and the people that are just trying to make a connection any way that they can, you know, or like I said, they're from outside of the area, so they don't know, you know, the things that were leading up to some of these ladies' disappearances. But aside from Lori, I know that both Corrie and Yolanda let people know that if something happened to them type of scenario. Corrie very much knew that her life was in danger, although separated from her abuser, tried to carry on with life, and unfortunately, somebody took that opportunity from her.
That's utterly tragic and yeah, definitely more commonplace, unfortunately, than just, say, a stranger abduction or a serial killer where you have, you know, women's romantic partners essentially being a threat.
From the outside, you know, these were three very beautiful women around the same age. So, you know, from the outside looking in, if you don't know their life and what was leading up to each of their disappearances, it is very easy to say, we have a problem here. But anytime that there is a cluster, that's the first thing out of a lot of people's mouths is serial killer, which we may very well have one, but it's not these three cases specifically. That would be what we discussed last time about Marquita Mall and the Jane Doe located on Chautauqua County Rails for Trails in Portland.
Absolutely. And my understanding is that Corrie went missing under very tragic circumstances where she essentially was unable to pick up her son from school. Yes.
Corrie went missing on October 28th, 2008. She was due at 3 o'clock to a meeting at her son's school to pick him up and also talked to the teachers because she was helping organize the Halloween party for the school that was to occur just in a couple of days from when she went missing. She was last seen around 1:30 p.m. that day, leaving Washington Street because she was, like I said, separated from who her husband was. She had moved on. She was dating somebody pretty seriously at the time, and she had went to see him on his lunch break at his car garage on Washington Street and left there roughly around 1:30 that afternoon. And the alarm bell started sounding to her family when she did not show up to that meeting by 3 p.m. When police originally got the call and went to her home, they did locate a couple of items that told them she did make it back there after leaving Washington Street in Jamestown, just did not make it to that school meeting. So we do know that she made it back home. So that leaves a very small window, basically, between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. that something went very wrong. Leading up to her disappearance, she was separated from an ex-husband, actually because he never divorced his previous wife before Corrie. She was wife number 5. Previous wives also described him as very abusive, and at one time they also feared for their lives. So they left the relationship, tried to start new, and that's kind of what Corrie was doing. Somebody told me that he put a tracking device on her vehicle. Even after she had moved on, there were many times that she came to her apartment and felt as if somebody had been inside while she was gone. Just a couple weeks leading up to her disappearance, she told her mother, if anything happens to me, Ken Anderson is responsible. Ken is like I said, she was wife number 5, and since that time, he actually had wife number 6, which he kidnapped here from Jamestown, New York, and brought to Kentucky. And she was being held against her will in a motel. He was arrested for the kidnapping and holding her, I don't know if you want to say hostage or against her will or whatever you may want to call it. They were married at the time, so he has since been charged with very similar crimes, as well as he has since rented out the place that Corrie was living. It's where they lived together before separating. She was living there after they had separated still, and people actually rented that apartment after she went missing that have told me personally that Ken said that you don't have access to the basement. And they later found out, he said, I might crash there once in a while if I have to work in this area, but that would just be an occasional thing. And I talked to previous tenants that said it became nightly. He was staying in there. He would make entry into their actual apartment without permission. They were very scared. He actually went to go show the house while one of the girls was in the shower. So this behavior is nothing new. It's always been concerning. And he's already out of jail for the kidnapping of his 6th wife and bringing her to Kentucky. It was basically a slap on the wrist. So he's still out free, jumping state to state. So that is very alarming. I know he still does visit our area. I cannot confirm if their shared child has anything to do with him or if that's the reason for him visiting on occasion. I do know that he still owns some property here in Chautauqua County, and I have not been able to confirm that all of those lands have been searched for Corrie. I know the one that they shared together there that she went missing from was when she went missing. Not only did they find the items inside her home telling them that she did make it home from work, but they also found one of her shoes at the bottom of the staircase there at home. I believe that's the only physical evidence besides whatever they found inside saying that she made it home that they did find there, but that tells me that there was a sign of a struggle. She definitely did not leave on her own free will. It was very uncharacteristic of her, and family knew right away. They filed her missing. They were searching all of that night in the surrounding areas. Surprisingly, they even called state police. State police responded immediately. The responding officer or investigator is still on the case today, which is Investigator Joseph Smith, and you can tell this case really eats at him, and he would like to bring some answers and form of closure to this family before he retires. I know he has put a lot into it, but it's just missing that small piece that many of these are. I know that they tried new DNA technology in 2019 because 2 days after she went missing, they located her van basically less than a mile away from her home and where she went missing from on a side street called Courtright Road. They found her van, and they have DNA tested that back in 2008. 2016 or 2019, they retested it. I know our state labs are very booked up, so I can't even say for sure that they've got results from that or not yet. I know that the new cold case unit is looking into private labs and possibly getting funding and granting so that we can get them expedited, because they can sit in the backlog for quite some time. And in that original search, I believe they did only locate the van in 2008, which is weird because that was less than a mile away. And remember how I told you that the family went out searching, police state were searching the area because they knew immediately that night something was wrong. The van was not found or there for 2 days. In 2016, they conducted another search of that property that her van was located on and found additional evidence, including her other shoe and her keys. So that's strange all in itself. That was one of the most extensive searches that I've seen happen locally. They had quite the response for that. Any resource that you could hope that would be used in a case for your loved one was used for Corrie and the initial searches. They covered a lot of ground. And to me, it's just very strange that the van was located 2 days later and they never came across the shoe or the keys. They had metal detectors. They had canines. They had everything that you can name. Like I said, droners, all of it, helicopters. And they did not come across that evidence in 2008, but later found it in 2016. So a lot of people, kind of suspect, was it a red herring, or people kind of revisiting these areas and planting this evidence at a later date so that it's nowhere to be found. But to me, that doesn't totally make sense either, because there's ways to get rid of something, but, besides just leaving it where that people are searching for it. So I do feel like it could have went missed, and that's a lot of why our group steps in and redoes what we do, because law enforcement can try every resource and thing that they have available to them, search an area 10 times, and I still see cases today where there were extensive searches conducted 10 years later, something becomes visible and sets of remains are located, and they were obviously missed in initial searches. So however that happens, we're all human. And of course, weatherization can play a role in that. Something that wasn't visible or findable before can surface. So that's basically that. But Corrie was separated and had an order of protection out on him. And like I said, she reported that he had a tracking device on her vehicle at the time. He was still holding employment. He was not, to my knowledge, being arrested for every time she's reporting domestic violence, somebody harassing her, somebody stalking her, somebody inside of her home, her vehicle being tracked. It just seemed like one thing after another wasn't going heard by Corrie. But she let everybody know in her life that if something happened, she knew her life was in danger. And she didn't just confide in her mother and her sister and her family about that. I personally have a best friend that was renting one of Corrie's properties at the time, and she even told the girl that was renting from her, if Ken ever comes to try and collect any type of rent or anything, do not communicate with him, do not interact, call authorities immediately. He is a dangerous individual, basically. So
that is such a terrifying and upsetting story, because it feels like it speaks to something about the system and us as a society letting this woman down. I'm going back to the Kentucky case where he is arrested for abduction and rape of his other wife. Do you have a sense of why he was given such a slap in the wrist on that case?
I do not. It's actually very hard to come by new information. I have tried communicating with law enforcement, but New York State is very good about keeping things very tight-lipped. I can't get anything out of him other than what's already stated in media. He doesn't want to let a little piece of information get out there that could hinder anything that he's been working at since 2008. And like I said, it is for no lack of trying on law enforcement's behalf with her case. They've done everything that you think that somebody should do. I have actually recently organized a search effort for Corrie. However, we had inclement weather, had to cancel that. And actually, as a community, you would think that everybody would be supportive of these new efforts. However, not everybody is so privy on letting you search their lands in this area. So a lot of ground that we want to cover, I don't know that we will be able to gain access to, unfortunately. And I think that's the roadblock that law enforcement has probably hit as well. I don't know how many warrants they secured to search all of Ken's property or belongings. I have recently received a tip that potentially his work laptop was never collected, that the supervisor at the time offered it and they did not collect it. Now, I don't think that's a lack of not wanting to collect it, but maybe there was a legality there where they didn't have a warrant to collect it at the time. But according to this tipster, there was, when he put the tracking device on Corrie's vehicle, there was possibly locations, and where he stored that information was that laptop, along with basically an X marks the spot, according to this tipster. I don't know how true this is, and it has not been confirmed information, but very possibly, like I said, I do know they secured warrants to search the property she was living in that they shared when they were together, as well as her previous residence that I said my best friend was renting from her at the time. I know both those properties were searched extensively. I know he has not been very cooperative. They only spoke to Ken Anderson once, interviewed him. He secured an attorney, and he has only spoken to them one time since with his attorney present. So I know he's not offering them to search these spots. So if warrants weren't secured, that is how these things are going missing. No new information is coming from him. He is not offering them to search any properties that they may not have gained access to. He obviously isn't going to tell them, well, you didn't collect this or anything like that. But it's strange to me that this tipster says that she has never spoken to law enforcement. And that goes to reflect, again, unless people are asked, they don't tell locally. I don't know. I appreciate her coming forward with this information, obviously, but it's also alarming in that if his work laptop was never collected and it very clearly had evidence and the supervisor knew it and they tried to offer it forward, why a warrant was never secured for that laptop? Because according to the people that worked at Cummins, that laptop was never collected.
So he was an employee at Cummins?
Yes, correct. Oh, whoa, no. Yes, he was as well, actually. I thought I got confused with the Lori case. My apologies. But yes, both were employees at Cummins Engine here in Lakewood, which is a very big place. A lot of people are employed there, actually. It's probably one of the biggest factories we still have locally here. So, yeah, that's how this tipster obviously knew a little bit about both cases because her husband had also previously worked at the Cummins plant. So that is how both of those tips came forward, actually. It's the same tipster that tipped me off to the fact that somebody lived in Lori Bovee's apartment that was never questioned back at the time. So both those tips came from the same person, actually. And it's the plant that it seems like everybody has worked at once in their life locally here. I know my husband used to work up there and his twin brother as well. So, yeah, it's a pretty big place of employment here locally. We are in a big area, and although we used to flourish in factory, most of them sit abandoned now, and Cummins is one of the only ones still going strong in our local vicinity here. So I think that's about it related to Corrie. And the third case is not actually a missing lady because she was located. However, it is an unsolved case here in Chautauqua County, that of Yolanda Bendix that went missing on August 10th, 2004 at 8:20 p.m. after closing down Family Dollar on Fluvanna Avenue, which is actually right where we basically just talked about where Corrie Anderson left Washington Street. Fluvanna is basically right there, an extension right close by. She closed up Family Dollar with a coworker. She called her brother that was watching her daughters that she was stopping for milk and a couple of groceries. I'm guessing that Family Dollar didn't have the couple of groceries that she needed and that she was on her way home. She never made it home, unfortunately, and some hunters discovered her remains on September 10th, 2006, roughly 30 miles from where her car was found. Her car was located a couple parking lots down from Family Dollar in an Arby's restaurant parking lot. So she closed up Family Dollar at 8:20, and by 8:35, she was no longer answering the phone calls from family that was asking her, have you grabbed what you need? Are you coming home? And she called a sister earlier that day that tried to return the call around them. And by 8:35, she was no longer answering the phone. So again, just like a short window that we know when something happened to Corrie, same as this case. Between 8:20 and 8:35, family knew immediately that it was out of character for her to not answer her phone. One of her sisters had fought on her previously just for that situation. She was a mother of 4 girls. And actually, the youngest one is what a lot of people believe could be part of the motivation behind something happening to Yolanda. This was very hard locally because a lot of people put heat on a police officer that she had just recently started kind of, I don't know if you want to call it dating or talking or, whatever you may want to call it. But it was a new thing. She said he made her happy, made her giddy, never really was scared of him. And unfortunately, in the very beginning of this case, it got very messy because the investigating agency was Jamestown Police Department, in which this new boyfriend that was a cop worked at and was actually lead investigator of her case for the first week until they took him off of it. So that started a lot of rumors here around town, and a lot of stuff was put on him in the beginning as one of the 2 potential suspects. But again, out of Yolanda's own mouth to her family, she wasn't scared of this man. It was new. It was fun. Overall, a good guy. It resulted in him losing his job locally. He had to basically take up another career to make ends meet. And, those rumors, again, that we went back to last time about everybody suspecting a serial killer. Anytime that one of the main players was a police officer, that became the rumor, Oh, he's a cop. He knows how to get away with it. He killed Yolanda. But there was another main suspect in her case named early on, which was Clarence Cart. She had just recently had her youngest child, which was Clarence's, but he did not know that previously, and neither did her family, actually. Nobody really knew who the father of the child was aside from Yolanda. I guess she applied for some type of social services or something to that extent, and they sent something stating that this child was his. So he got notified basically by social services that her youngest child was his. She had mentioned to family that this person, an individual, did scare her, that he was very reactive at times and startled her. Later, it was announced out of the 2 main suspects, the police officer, which, like I said, even local media, rumors, everything pointed to the cop in the very beginning. So a lot of people went with that. However, his alibi tended to check out much more than Clarence Cart's did. Clarence was actually seen on video surveillance at Quickfill across the street from Family Dollar within 20 minutes of Yolanda getting out of work that night. So again, they haven't secured something to say absolutely he's guilty. Otherwise, obviously, this would not be an unsolved case. But I do know the cold case unit also took up this case. They recently released video surveillance, just still photos from it, from 2004 in that Quickfill station of 2 ladies that were in line, I believe, probably behind or in front of Clarence when he was in the gas station that night, that they are looking to speak to. I cannot verify if they've identified either of those 2 ladies. They just recently released that from Unsolved Chautauqua on Facebook, so they are circulating that, and I'm kind of surprised. I don't know if it says in the files if those ladies were ever tracked down and questioned or not, but if they weren't, then that's a very big thing that, again, went missed in the early investigation, which can prove to be detrimental. And the weird part that I find about this case is that most cases, the missing at least, you wait until a body is located, remains are found, and you usually think, okay, it's going to be solved at this point. The family did get a cause of death ruled, obviously being blunt force trauma and homicide. But since her body was located in, did I say 2006? I believe, yes. Nothing has come from that. I don't know if they have tried any type of DNA advancements. Again, that's new to our local law enforcement. It's a new thing, and it's something that this new cold case unit is taking on, and it's been much needed for a very long time. But it's very sad to me that her remains were located, and that did not bring one answer that we didn't have previously, unfortunately, because a lot of these missing, that's what you hope for. Usually once remains are found or your loved one is located, answers are soon to follow. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case. She was located in 2006, and here we are in 2023, still without definitive answers.
That's incredibly tragic for her family, I imagine, because as you said, that is when you think that answers will be forthcoming.
Yes, and her daughters, I mean, they were all raised by different family members. It has definitely plagued their family with different stances on who they believe is involved. Like I said, there is the youngest daughter that is the daughter of main suspect number one, so it definitely doesn't do anything good for the family having it unsolved at this point. I know her sister continued to pay her cell phone bill between 2009 and 2011. The voicemail actually changed to an older lady's voice. Her sister sat down to call again, and it was out of service. And she said she wasn't sure how that happened because she was the one paying the bill. So she called the phone company, and they said that the account holder requested it to be shut off. And that's what the note on the account said. She was the sole account holder and never requested that. So that was strange because nothing ever came of that again. And it kind of sent her sister in a tailspin. Who would have called pretending to be me to shut off this phone? Who was the old lady that left a new voicemail saying you've reached so-and-so? Well, she was the active account holder. So that's still just another twist in there that happened a little after that I thought I would mention. But I think we have covered Yolanda pretty thoroughly at that point.
Thank you so much to Mary for her insight and time.
And please check out her podcast, Meddling in Mysteries, Murder, and Missing on Mondays with Mary. We'll link to that and more in our show notes.
Thanks so much for listening to The Murder Sheet. If you have a tip concerning one of the cases we cover, please email us at murdersheet@gmail.com. If you have actionable information about an unsolved crime, please report it to the appropriate authorities.
If you're interested in joining our Patreon, that's available at www.patreon.com/murdersheet. If you want to tip us a bit of money for records requests, you can do so at www.buymeacoffee.com/murdersheet. We very much appreciate any support.
Special thanks to Kevin Tyler Greenlee, who composed the music for The Murder Sheet, and who you can find on the web at kevintg.com.
If you're looking to talk with other listeners about a case we've covered, you can join the Murder Sheet discussion group on Facebook. We mostly focus our time on research and reporting, so we're not on social media much. We do try to check our email account, but we ask for patience as we often receive a lot of messages. Thanks again for listening. Hello, Murder Sheet listeners. Thank you so much for sticking with us until the very end. Just wanted to take a moment as we close out to thank our sponsor, HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. They are #1 for a reason, folks. Kevin and I have been loving the meals we're getting from HelloFresh. We're talking farm fresh produce, protein, all sorts of customizable options to get you exactly what you and your family need. It's very delicious, it's very nutritious, and it's quite affordable. So it ticks off all our boxes. We've been very happy with the service. And, would love for you guys to try it out if you're curious, or if you've tried it out in the past and enjoyed it, get that discount. It's hellofresh.com/msheet16. And then you're going to plug in the code msheet16. You get 16 free meals plus free shipping. You can't beat that. We've really been delighted by it. We work very hard on the podcast. It takes up a lot of time. It's our small business. We really enjoy the work. We enjoy conversing with all of you every week. But at the same time, it's nice for Kevin and I to kind of have something to do outside of office hours, and cooking these meals has been really fun. We're terrible in the kitchen, like disastrous. I mean, like I can tell you horror stories. I probably shouldn't get into it on the podcast, but I mean, some pretty disastrous moments involving our cooking. Nothing life-threatening, but definitely stuff that we tried to be overly ambitious about, and it either went horribly wrong or it ended up costing like way more than it should have because we didn't properly think about ingredients, and we're not we're not gifted in the realm of the kitchen, but HelloFresh makes us pretend like we are because everything is so pre-portioned and pre-planned, and the instructions are super clear. So like, you're not going to mess it up if you're like us. And if you're good in the kitchen, then it's just less of a hassle, and you get everything that you need. You don't have to run out to the grocery store. So super nice. Try it out. I've really enjoyed the meals that they've sent us so far. I can say that Kevin has too. I highlight that because Kevin is pretty picky when it comes to food. He does not like everything. He has pretty strong specifications and preferences, very much cares about things like fresh produce and farm produce and things like that. So he's very picky, and I think the fact that he is really enjoying HelloFresh is a testament to the quality here, because he's a stickler for that kind of thing. And so if you are, I think you will enjoy it as well. And again, the URL and promo code that'll get you a sweet discount is hellofresh.com/msheet16. That's MSHEET 16. And use code MSHEET16. You're going to get 16 free meals plus free shipping. We hope you enjoy it. And again, thank you so much for listening.